Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. How was Gameweek 16 for you? Well, for me, I got 73 points, which isn't bad considering the average is 60. However, I did gamble with my captaincy and went for Thiago because I thought, Brentford can score many goals against Leeds. Boy, was I wrong. Haaland scores 2 goals, and what does Thiago do? Nothing. Just 2 points for a mighty 4. I used 4 of my transfers as well, out of the 5, but it wasn't too bad because I brought in Foden and Fernandes. And, well, Foden, Fernandes, Thiago, who did nothing, and Ben White, and then Arsenal concede. So Arsenal conceding was not on my bingo cards for this game week. Imagine that. You're so convinced of the Arsenal clean sheet like I was. You bring in an Arsenal defender, and then they concede. What a waste. You bring in Mr. What's he called from Everton? Dewsbury Hall gets injured. Maybe he brought in the Kuiper. He doesn't play, which is a good thing if you had a good bench. You think maybe Fulham will do the business and keep a clean sheet? Nope, they do not. So if you brought in Anderson, it wasn't a great decision. Having a Man City defender was a good decision. Who knew? Maybe you brought in a Romero or a Van de Ven because they are a bit random. They lose 3-0. Maybe you have Voltemada. He scores the most beautiful own goal. And so you see Voltemada on the score sheet, but it's on the wrong end of the pitch. You bring in Matikash like many of us did. They concede within 30 seconds. And Brentford just draw 1-1 with Leeds. Manchester United score 4 goals. And Mbeumo does nothing. But at least Semenyo finally shows up. And Evan Nilsson finally shows up as well, it must be said. Things maybe of note is that maybe Gusto is a bit of a sneaky good pick from Chelsea. Only problem is that you never know when he'll play. But when he plays, he seems to either score, keep a clean sheet, or have an assist. And then Palmer is back and scoring, so that might be something. Ekitike scored 2 goals and he looked quite impressive. Harry Wilson continues to be Fulham's best player. Saka had 2 assists in this game, even though no Arsenal player scored, it seems. Now, when it comes to Spurs, it seems like they continue to be inconsistent. Foden has scored for his 4th game in a row. Haaland continues to score. Sunderland are looking impressive still. Bowen is looking like a good buy once again. Morgan Rogers is looking like the best Aston Villa player right now. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin also is looking like a great player right now. Bruno Fernandes continues to impress. Evan Nilsson finally scores. Tavernier is also looking like a sneaky good buy from Bournemouth. And Semenyo scores for the first time since I think game week 8. So for all of you who have been holding on, well done. The highest scoring game of the week was last night when Manchester United drew 4-4 with Bournemouth. This game, I wish I watched it. It was a bit too late for me, but watching the highlights, it was incredible. It was as entertaining as the Man City Fulham game, except there was no winner. There were chances. It was quite an open game, or at least more open than the managers intended it to be. They opened the scoring with Ahmad scoring from literally on the line with a header. He was fast to react. Good goal. Then Semenyo comes in from the right, scores, hits the goal on the left post. Great finish. Casemiro then scores a header to take it to 2-1, and they go into the half feeling okay, they're good. Then immediately after halftime, Evan Nilsson pegs them back, and it's 2-2. Then Tavernier scores a really good goal, and it's 3-2. Then Fernandes scores a lovely free kick. And then Cunha gives Manchester United the lead. And then you think that surely there can't be another goal. But then guess who scores? Krupi. Krupi comes back from his little drought and he scores a really good goal with a really good finish. And it's 4-4. A very entertaining game. I swear, having Senesi is just tougher. I think that this is why I gave up on him. They just keep on conceding. I think Bournemouth have been scored 28 goals away from home. That is unsustainable. They need to really tie things up. Dalot, Bruno Fernandes, and Sesko had the assists, while Smith, Tavernier and Jimenez had their assists for Bournemouth. Bruno Fernandes had 3 bonus points, Tavernier had 2, and Cunha had 1. I am really happy that Africa Cup was happening because that is the only reason I switched from Mbeumo to Fernandes, because I thought Mbeumo was not going to be available for this game. Had I known that, I wouldn't have made those transfers. So I'm really happy that I benefited by mistake. I'm not sure for others, but for me, I had the most disappointing game of the weekend. It was Brentford 1, Leeds 1, for obvious reasons. I expected this game to be an explosive 4-4, kind of like Man U Bournemouth. That is honestly what I expected. I expected this game to be more competitive, more open, more free-flowing, but it seems that Leeds have become tighter at the back, and over the last 4 or 5 games, they are a different team. They have figured something out about how they want to play and how to be more compact and how to go forward. That really makes me think I should only be betting against Wolves and maybe Burnley now, no longer betting against Leeds. And because I chose Hugo Thiago as my captain, the closest he came to scoring was when there was a penalty shout, but then it ended up that Ouattara was offside. And that would have been his only chance. It really seemed like Brentford were unable to break Leeds down in any real way. So that for me is the most disappointing match. In a way, I guess the Arsenal result is also disappointing, mainly because there was no clean sheet. And then on top of that, it was 2 own goals. Actually, this is probably the most disappointing game because there was one thing we knew. Even I said it in the previous podcast. We believe Arsenal will win. It was the only sure bet. Then the problem was then now figuring out who are you going to back to score against Wolves. It turns out there was no good answer. Only backing Saka was the right answer. Apart from Saka, everything else was a disaster. Maybe he Nkapie, but everything else was a disaster. Saka got the 3 bonus points, Tolu got 2, and Gomez got 1. It was a bit of a disappointing game, honestly. But also, to be fair, Arsenal games are not that interesting to watch. Unless they're playing a big club, and then you're watching it because they're playing a big club, not because Arsenal's playing. Unless you're an Arsenal fan, of course. But if you're not an Arsenal fan, their games are not particularly entertaining to watch. Another contender is probably Spurs 0, Nottingham Forest 3. But then the problem is Spurs are inconsistent, and you've already heard me give my reserved judgment on Mr. Thomas Frank. He is not doing a great job. I'm honestly wondering if he's at the point of regretting having left Brentford, because he's not doing a good job. And I'm already seeing reports about Xavi being touted as his next replacement. You leave stability for that. I think in life, the moment you become self-aware, you will minimize a lot of your problems moving forward. There were 5 clean sheets this weekend, so you know defenders will have done a little bit well. Roofs, of course, after removing from my team, performed really well and gets 9 points. Alisson, 7. Donnarumma, 7. Sanchez from Chelsea and John from Forest, 6. Sells is injured, so John played. John is the Forest keeper, he's 4.0. So if you're looking for a bit of a differential and maybe you've got a Dubravka, that might be an idea worth exploring. When it comes to defenders, Gusto, top defender by far, 18 points. Mateus Nunes, 11 points. Reinildo, 10 points. Can you believe Reinildo is 3.9? Anyway, and he's gone for Africa Cup, so don't bring him on. Chaloba, 9. Fofana, 9. Basi, 9. Konate, 9. Konate finally has a good performance. When it comes to midfielders, Hudson-Odoi leads away with 19 points. Him and Sangare, it was like they were playing together. Sangare, 18 points. They were just scoring and assisting to each other. Harry Wilson, 16 points. Morgan Rogers, 15 points. Bruno Fernandes, 13 points. Tavernier, 12 points. Saka, 11 points. Foden, 11 points. So as you can tell, midfield was king, and Hudson-Odoi is this week's top performer. Ekitike and Haaland are tied as the top strikers this week with 13 points apiece. Calvert-Lewin, 9 points. Bowen, 8 points. And Tolu, 7 points. Looking at stats generated from the weekend, Erling Haaland has now produced 36 goals, plus 5 assists in 27 games this season. Ridiculous. The 3 most captained players in Gameweek 16 all delivered attacking returns. Haaland was captained by 5.6 million people, 13 points. Saka, 1 million, 11 points. Salah, 850,000 people, 7 points. I can't even believe, I think half of those teams are dead, if not majority of them, because there's no way with the recent struggles you'd be having Salah as your captain. When it comes to DEFCON points, Thiaw was number 1 from Newcastle with 22 actions. Number 2 is Senesi, as usual, who keeps performing, but his team can't keep a clean sheet. Then you have Fofana in third, who had 20 actions. Struijk also had 20, and Wharton, who had 14. This past game week 16, saw the third most transfers made all season. Game week 3 is the top, I guess is a leading week with the most transfers made, with 27 million transfers made, 27.8 million. Game week 4 had 27.4 million, and then now game week 16 had 24.4 million transfers made. So a lot of people have been thinking about transfers, but then it makes sense. This is when we all got the 5 transfers. Also, as you may be aware, game week 19 is when the cutoff is to use all your chips. So if you haven't used your chips, use them. Now, this past game week was the week that saw the most bench boosts used so far this season, with 477,000 used in one weekend, or rather one game week. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has scored in each of his last 4 Premier League appearances for Leeds United. That, along with Phil Foden, is the most, or is the longest joint current scoring streak of any player in Europe's top leagues. Brentford have dropped more points from winning positions in the Premier League than any other team this season. They have dropped 13 points, and 5 of those have been against promoted sides. It's shaky. Maybe if things align, maybe Thomas Frank can get his old job back. Speaking of Thomas Frank, Tottenham have picked up just 22 points across their opening 16 Premier League games this season. They've won 6, drawn 4, lost 6. The last time they had fewer points than this was in 2008-2009 when they had 18 points. So if this keeps up, it might not be much better than last season under Ange. Sunderland versus Newcastle had the fewest shots, 11, and the lowest XG, 0.53, of any Premier League match this season. The 11 shots were the fewest in a single game in the competition since March 2023, when Aston Villa took on Crystal Palace. Aston Villa have won 10 of their last 11 Premier League matches, just losing 1, including each of their last 6 in a row. This is the longest ever winning streak in the Premier League. Well done, guys. Time to get Morgan Rogers in. No Premier League match has had fewer shots, 4, or touches in the penalty area, 8, in the first half than Sunderland versus Newcastle. Mo Salah has 277 goal involvements for Liverpool in the Premier League, 188 goals and 89 assists. He is now the all-time record holder of a player with a single club in the competition, overtaking Wayne Rooney's goal contribution of 276, which was 183 goals and 93 assists. He is number 1. Hugo Ekitike scored Liverpool's first goal in the opening minute of the Premier League game against Brighton. It was their fastest ever goal since Naby Keita scored against Huddersfield in 2019. Jordan Pickford made a great save to deny Zirkzee a goal, and he has been awarded the Premier League Save of the Month for November, meaning he has won the award 3 times, which is the joint most since the award was incepted in 2022-2023. Fulham scored from a set piece this weekend, and only Arsenal have scored more goals from corners than Fulham. Harry Wilson has scored 4 goals in his last 7 games, and this game week was his best ever haul as an FPL asset. Crystal Palace have not beaten Manchester City at the Etihad in 10 years, and that streak is continuing. Matheus Fernandes scored a goal for West Ham against Aston Villa in the 29th second in the opening minute of the game. It is officially West Ham's fastest goal in the Premier League. Spurs have made 5 mistakes leading to goals. Only Wolves have made more mistakes leading to goals than Spurs have. As a result of the game week, you can imagine Harry Wilson is the most brought in player with 644,000 people bring him in, me included. Ekitike is number 2 with 458,000 bringing him in. Foden, 360,000 bringing him in. Bruno Fernandes, 220,000 bring him in. Rogers, 221,000 bring him in. So as you can see, all the top performers of the game week have been brought in. It's only Sangare, who's gone for Africa Cup, Molo Gusto, and Hudson Odoi, who haven't been brought in. Now, top players out. Mbeumo, of course, 639,000 have dropped him. Munoz, 363,000 have dropped him. After Voltemada's own goal, 254,000 have dropped him. Mateta, 173,000 have dropped him. Diaye, who's also gone for Africa Cup, 172,000 have dropped him. So remember, Africa Cup players are now unavailable from this game week moving forward. Depending on how well or not their team performs, it could be a minimum of 2 weeks before you see them back. The most points gotten this week belong to Tob Back. Tob Back used their triple captain, and they chose to triple captain Saka, which was quite fortunate. But also, given how his team performed, or given how their team performed, pretty much everybody would have been a good choice. In goal, Donnarumma, 7 points. Hinkapie, 4 points. Malo Gusto, 18 points. Chaloba, 9 points. Morgan Rogers, 15 points. Bruno Fernandes, 13 points. Wilson, 16 points. Saka, 33 points. Bowen, 8 points. Haaland, 13 points. Ekitike, 13 points. That is how they got 149 points. Well done to you, good sir. In our group, Big Wigs FC, managed by Abel Kibunja, were our top performers. They used a free hit and got 111 points, and that is not too bad. Considering the top had 149, 31, 37 points, 38 points behind is not a bad thing. Now, and note that he didn't use his triple captain, so that makes it a bit more impressive. Now, Sanchez was in goal, 6 points. Romero, 1 point. Virgil van Dijk, 6 points. Vardiol, 8 points. Saka, 22 points as captain. Foden, 11. Bruno Fernandes, 13. Harry Wilson, 16. Raul Jimenez, 2. Haaland, 13. Ekitike, 13. And that is how they got 111. Second in our group was Alan Muchangi, who got 103 points. Martin Asewe got 98 points. Los Poro Hermanos, Amos Langat got 96 points. And in 5, we had 3 people tied. Papichulo, DJ Notice, and Luffy D each got 94 points. It was a good haul this game week. On the other end of the table, my good friend Timodera, Vintage Dreams FC, has 31 points. Wow, 31 points is the lowest. That's not bad. 2 points from Raya, 1 from Rodon, 0 from Gabriel, 6 from Kukurea, 2 from Miley, 1 from Mamouche, 5 from Verts, 2 from Mbeumo, 6 from Palma, 4 from his captain Gyokeres, and 1 from Isak. So you can see this is one of those set and forget type teams. When it works out well, it works out, but then you can see that there's so many adjustments that are needed to be made. When it comes to the bottom 5, Mark Giosh is second from bottom with 32, Richard Madegwa, 34 points, Mike Wow, 35 points, and number 5 we have Okaka Felix and Chris Masika, who have 39 points each. When it comes to most points on the bench, Jeffrey Jeremy, man behind the mask, takes those honors. He has a whopping 26 points on the bench, and that is mainly because Harry Wilson is on the bench with 16 points. Then Gay has 1. Mukiele, like me, has 8 points on the bench and was last. And then considering that Dewsbury Hall got injured early and Matikash got 0, Mukiele points and Harry Wilson points would have been very much appreciated. Ashwin Lee, Moses Chege, Wilson Deng, and Pablo Hernandez round up the top 5, each of them having 20 points on the bench. Alan Muchangi, who did so well, naturally has the most goal scorers, or rather the most goals scored with 7 goals scored by players on his team. Zetu FC, managed by Jeremy Yego, had the most impressive midfield this week with his midfield netting him 65 points. And if you're wondering, if you have a midfield of 65 points, what the hell did you get? He got 89 points this week. Now, when it comes to defenders, Kaiser Sose, Mr. Bonaji, friend of the podcast, had the best defense this week, racking up 33 points. Well done to you, good sir. When it comes to the most transfers made this week, Mike Mbugwa made 14 transfers. Gwan Kimko made 10. Luffy D, Nabil Assad, Winston Ding, Cyril Mutali, Joe Mbugwa, Kimeu Mutinda, Yeremi Yego all made 6. Those are so many players to make 6. Abel Kibunja, our league leader this week in tally points. From his decision to use a free hit, he got 45 more points than he would have gotten. Smacha Chams comes in second with 42. Dio Mikisi, 40. Jeffrey Jeremy, 39. And number 5 is DJ Notice and Aflagani, 36 points better than had they not made the changes that they made. Please teach us your ways. Now, when it comes to the opposite of that, Mike Mbugwa, who made 14 transfers, is worse by 14 positions. Worse by 31 points. Don Clinton, worse by 13 points. Ashwin Lee, worse by 8 points. Gwan Kimko, worse by 6. And Melvin Asakanya, worse by 5 points. Had they just done nothing. When it comes to the highest team value, Collins Kagi's team is worth 105.5. And that is the most valuable team. On the opposite end, Murunga Imanyara is still holding strong and his team is now worth 97M. Collins Kogi has added 1.3 million to the bank. Goodness, who the hell did you add to your team? And on the other end, Mr. Kushkid has dropped 1.1 in value, 1.1 million. That's a lot of points to lose. Transfers are going to become much more difficult. When it comes to managers who benefited the most compared to the league, you have Dennis Mutua, who is in the 1% of people who own Callum Hudson-Odoi, so he benefited from those 19 points. And then you have Kelvin, manager of Die Schmetterling, who had Malo Gusto, who had 18 points. And then after that, it's Harry Wilson, who's owned by 9% of us, who gave their managers 16 points. When it comes to captain choices, at least this one is a bit more spread out than last week. Haaland was chosen by 99 of us. Then Mr. Saka was chosen by 37 of us as captain. Igor Thiago was chosen by 11, and I commiserate with my fellow dummies. Gyokeres was captained by 6, Bruno Fernandes by 5, Foden by another 5, Mateta by another 5, Salah by another 4. That is quite impressive. He's gone down to 4. We're very active. Palmer was chosen by 3, Voltemada by 2. Tommy, I am so sorry. That must be so painful. Wood, captained by 2. You can tell these guys are not playing anymore. João Pedro, captained by 2. Wow. Merino, 2. Calvert-Lewin, 1. Ekitike, Hudson-Odoi, Grealish, Gakpo, Van Dijk, Raul Jimenez, Mbeumo, Watkins, Odegaard, Gabriel, captained by 1. When it comes to the overall rank riser, Emmanuel Obuya has jumped most globally this week, jumping 1.1 million positions globally. Mike Wow is not doing so well. He has dropped 1.2 million positions globally. Emmanuel Obuya has seen his team have a streak of green arrows for the 8th week in a row. Dejan Saveski is on the opposite end. 6 weeks in a row has seen his team have a streak of red arrows. In our league, Big Wigs FC, of course, if you get those many points, you will jump the highest. He has risen 29 points. 29 ranks. Chris Masika has dropped 26 ranks this week. When it comes to our league table, Arnold Medunga maintains his spot at number 1 with 1037 points. Jeffrey Jeremy, man behind the mask, 1013 points. So there's a bit of a gap over there, about 24 points. Alan Muchangi, 1011 points in 3rd place. Los Poro Hermanos, 1001 points. Madagani Kihoro, 992 points. Number 5, Franklin Asiema tied, 992 points. Charles Cadevillis, number 7, 979 points, along with LED, who has 979 points. Leon Mortier is back in the top 10 with 978 points. And number 10 is Mark Mutegi, 973 points. Number 1 has 1037 points. Number 22, which coincidentally is me, has 939 points. So that is number 1 to number 22. That's where 100 points is, because number 23 has 935 and number 1 has 1037. So that gap to catch up to number 1 is slowly increasing. Before it was like number 1 to 100 is 100 points, but now it's shrinking. And so if you're below number 22, start pulling up your socks. Start pulling up your socks. At the bottom of the table, number 194 belongs to Mark Zizzo, manager Mark Mora, 242 points. Don Clinton, 475 points. Tim Odera, 615 points. Murunga Imanyara, 618 points. And Mike's team, 625 points. Ahead of this next game week, we have a few cup games, the Carabao Cup. So in this one, it's Chelsea, Man City, Brentford, Newcastle, and Fulham playing in this midweek. And then next midweek, we'll see Arsenal and Crystal Palace play. So if you have or are considering Chelsea, Man City, Brentford, Newcastle, or Fulham players, watch out. There's a possibility something might happen to them. So if you can, wait before making your decision. This weekend, we'll see Chelsea take on Newcastle at St. James's Park. Chelsea had a good victory over the weekend, while Newcastle were beaten by their rivals. So Newcastle will be also, and both teams are also playing midweek. So watch out for that. That will affect their game in case somebody gets injured. When it comes to the head-to-head, in their recent history, Newcastle have won 2 games, Chelsea have won 2, and a draw. So that goes to show that there is a bit of a balance, and this game is going to be delicately poised. Now, because of the cup game midweek, it's hard to know who will be available, but should everything go okay, if you're choosing Chelsea players, Palmer, who has just gotten back amongst the goals, will be a good bet. Reece James, because he plays in midfield, if he's chosen again, because with him it's iffy, and Pedro Neto. But if you're also looking for a defender who will play from Chelsea, so far it seems the most dependable Chelsea defender is Chalobah. On the Newcastle end, they didn't have a good showing last time out, so it's not very encouraging, but Voltemada is still a good bet. Bruno Guimaraes is also still a good bet. And then maybe Gordon. When it comes to Bournemouth versus Burnley, Bournemouth just played a thriller against Manchester United 4-4. Maybe it seems the goals have opened. Burnley lost 3-2, and they are able to score. I do not believe there will be a clean sheet in this game. I believe both teams will score. I believe Bournemouth are favored, and I think it will be leaning towards them. Now, if you're choosing their players, I would say Tavernier, Mr. Semenyo, and Evan Nilsson. Evan Nilsson maybe has broken his scoring duck since he scored, and now I think he'll be fine. If you're choosing Burnley players, I would say Ugo Chukwu and maybe Brun Larsen and Broja, since for whatever reason Fleming isn't starting, but I would still go Fleming. I won't look at the head-to-head given that Burnley are recently promoted side. Now, an interesting game that will be taking place next will be Brighton versus Sunderland. Brighton were beaten by by Liverpool over the weekend, but they did try. They were threatening. And Sunderland beat Newcastle in a very dull affair. Now, both teams will be looking to improve upon the performance, if not necessarily the result. Sunderland, I keep doing this thing where I have Mukiele on my bench and then he does amazing. I bring him on, he does nothing. So given that trend, since I'm inclined to bring him on, I believe Brighton will score. Now, if you're looking for Sunderland players, I would say Isidore, Mukiele, since I'm going to bring him on. and Granit Xhaka. For Brighton, Minte, Diego Gomez, and Welbeck, even though Welbeck has been cold of late. In fact, for me, this is Welbeck's last chance, and then I'm moving off of him should he not perform this game week. Manchester City take on a resurgent West Ham. West Ham were beaten 3-2 against the best team in England right now in terms of form in Aston Villa. There's no shame in that. They were very competitive. Now, a lot of people were targeting their triple captain for this week. So I'm not sure if that's still a popular decision, but given that it's going to expire soon, if you're inclined, I would say I don't believe Haaland will score this game, even if he probably will. I would use it next weekend because my pattern so far has been Haaland doesn't score, then he scores. Doesn't score, then he scores. So he didn't score the game week before, then he scored this week. So I believe he won't score this weekend, then he will score next weekend. But anyway, that's a bit dumb, but that's what it feels like it has been for me recently. Manchester City have had a great record against West Ham and have won their last 5 encounters against them. Therefore, there is no reason to believe they won't win this 6th one in a row. Foden, Haaland, Sheki are my top recommendations for this match. And then if you want a defensive player, I would say either Vardiol or Mateus Nunes. They seem to be the ones getting the points. On the West Ham end, I would say Bowen, Mateus Nunes. That's it. And maybe Paqueta. Now, moving on, you have Wolves versus Brentford. Now, I have Igor Thiago in this game. Am I going to captain him for 2nd game week in a row? I am very close to doing that, considering it is Wolves. Now, when you look at the head-to-head, it favors, well, there are 2 draws, 1 win for Wolves and 2 wins for Brentford. So Brentford are the better team, and given recent form, Brentford are the favored team. Now, I am going to say, now Ouattara has gone, so don't look for him. Igor Thiago, Sada, and Damsgaard are your best bets. And if you think there'll be a clean sheet in this one, you can have Collins. Now, you saw Arsenal concede, so I wouldn't really say that it's a great idea to have a defender against Wolves since they're starting to score. Now, on the other hand, Strand Larsen, Huang, and maybe Krejci are your best bets for Wolves in this encounter. Moving on, Tottenham take on Liverpool. Now, Tottenham are so inconsistent and so unpredictable. Just a game week or 2 ago, it looked like bringing on Xavi Simons was a great idea. Look at them now. It's even hard to recommend a Spurs player because you just honestly do not know what they will do. And given how Thomas Frank has been lining up against big teams, he's going to set up like a challenger, not even like a challenger, like a minnow. He's going to change his lineup like he's a promoted side. I have no faith in Tottenham to get a result against this Liverpool. Now, when it comes to their head-to-head, it is overwhelmingly in Liverpool's favor. Just even listen to the results. Liverpool 5-1, Liverpool 4-0, Tottenham 1-0, Liverpool 6-3, Liverpool 4-2. So it tends to be a high-scoring game. And if you pick the right player, you could be rewarded. Ekitike is a really strong bet. He has been incredible this season. If you watched him in PSG, you wouldn't have known he was going to turn into the guy he is right now. But well done to him for keeping on. He is the first player I would recommend from this team. After that, there's a steep drop-off because Gakpo is still injured, Salah is gone. So now you have to be like gambling with Szoboszlai and maybe like a Van Dijk. Why would you get a Liverpool defender? So honestly, outside the Ekitike, unless you want to like really gamble with Verts, it's going to be tough to see who the other person is. But if you believe in a clean sheet, you could have a Van Dijk or an Alisson. On the Spurs and Richarlison, Xavi Simons, yeah, and maybe Romero van de Ven. Maybe this is a game they show up. But honestly, I wouldn't be entering this game week looking for Spurs players. Everton versus Arsenal. Now, as you all know, Arsenal are league leaders and maybe the best team in England right now. In form, it's definitely Aston Villa, but in terms of position, it's Arsenal. Arsenal relied on 2 own goals to defeat Wolves, which isn't encouraging. But what is encouraging is that they still won. Now, this is a different proposition because Everton are a tough side and not in as much trouble as Wolves, and Everton rely on their defense. Now, having said that, when you look at the recent results, there are 2 draws and 3 wins for Arsenal. Now, but their most recent results have been 1-1 and 0-0, meaning that Everton are a bit difficult for Arsenal to break down. Now, when you're trying to look at the players for Arsenal, it's hard to go beyond Saka right now. And if you believe this is going to be a set-piece type game, you might want a defender like a Hincapié or a Timber, or maybe a Rice, because this is a kind of game that looks like it will be settled out of set pieces more than open play. On the Everton end, Ndiaye has gone. You know the defense is the calling card, so Pickford, Grealish, and maybe I would say Dewsbury Hall, but he picked up a knock, so not him. That's it. Tarkowski, Pickford, Grealish. Now, moving on to the next game, you have Leeds versus Crystal Palace. Now, both teams are doing well this season. Well, for their teams. Well, Crystal Palace are just doing well. But they were beaten 3-0 by Manchester City, just to show the gap. Leeds have had a good run of results of late. Calvert-Lewin has scored 4 goals in 4 games. I'm not going to look at head-to-head because Leeds are a promoted side. But I will say this. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has scored 4 in 4. So he would be the first person I recommend from their team. Okafor and Tanaka are the other 2 I would recommend from them. When it comes to Crystal Palace, without Munoz, they're looking a bit, shaky. But maybe the identity that is their defense will now resume because Man City is an exception. Man City are a better team. But Leeds are not a better team than Man City and not necessarily a better team than Crystal Palace. So I believe the odds are in Palace's favor. And I would say Mateta, Wharton, and Gay are the best bets from Crystal Palace right now. On Sunday, for whatever reason, there's only one fixture, and it is Aston Villa versus Manchester United. The best team in terms of form versus Manchester United, who are not shy. I don't know if that's the right word. Now, when it comes to the head-to-head, Manchester United have won 4 of their last 5 encounters and drawn 1. So somehow, even when they've been terrible, and they have been terrible, they still find a way to get past Villa. So maybe Manchester United are the bogey team. Now, if you believe that, and you believe that Manchester United will still perform without Mbeumo and Ahmad, you have Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, and maybe Casemiro as your best players for Manchester United. For Aston Villa, the team in form, just green everywhere. I would say you have to start with Morgan Rogers. You start with Morgan Rogers, then maybe you gamble with maybe Camara. I think there'll be goals in this one, so I wouldn't encourage you to get cash. And I would say maybe Watkins. But they really need to improve that position to be better in the next half of the season. But those are the 3 I would recommend. The final game of the game week will see Fulham take on Nottingham Forest. Now, this is going to be an interesting game because both teams, first of all, played well over the weekend, and both teams are really hard to predict. But when you look at their recent head-to-head, Fulham have won 4 out of their last 5 and lost only 1. So they will be slightly favored, if not heavily favored for this encounter. Harry Wilson is Fulham's best player this season, and he will be the one to be looking at. And then Emil Smith-Rowe after that, and Raul Jimenez. On the other side, Sangare has gone, so don't think you should be bringing him in right now. I would recommend, first of all, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and then Morgan Gibbs-White, and then Elliot Anderson. Those are the 3 players I'd recommend from Forest. When it comes to captain choices, looking at the Newcastle versus Chelsea, if you believe in Palmer, he might be a good one to have. If you believe in Chelsea's defense, Chalobah might be a good one to have. When it comes to Bournemouth versus Burnley, honestly, Semenyo would be a great shout, or Tavernier. Brighton versus Sunderland. This is a tricky one, and I could see it going either way, but I really can't see anybody standing out to me. Man City versus West Ham. I see three captains here: Haaland, Bowen, and Foden. Wolves versus Brentford. I see Thiago as a standout captain. Spurs versus Liverpool. Ekitike as a standout captain. Arsenal versus Everton. Saka as a standout captain. Crystal Palace versus Leeds. I don't see a standout captain, but you could go Dominic Calvert-Lewin and maybe Mateta, but Mateta hasn't been great so far. So don't captain Mateta. Just go. If you don't believe in the 4 in a row, I cannot blame you for choosing Calvert-Lewin. Aston Villa versus Man United. Honestly, if you choose like a Bruno Fernandes, you choose a Morgan Rogers, nobody would blame you. Forest versus Fulham. Hudson-Odoi, Harry Wilson, if you're brave enough. When it comes to number one in the world, there is a new number one, and that manager's team is called the Honest Chandlers. They have 102 points this week, and in their team, they have Raya in goal, Thiaw, Virgil van Dijk, Verdiol, Harry Wilson, Foden, Bruno Fernandes, Morgan Rogers, Thiago, Voltemada, Haaland. They got 102 points this week, and they have 1144 points. So talk about a great haul. Well done. When it comes to the FPL FDR, Arsenal have Everton, Brighton, Villa, Bournemouth, and Liverpool. These games, in my eyes, increase in difficulty. Aston Villa have Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Forest, and Crystal Palace. If they can maintain their winning streak, that would be absolutely impressive. I would even crown them champions. If they won the next 5 in a row, that would be unheard of. But I think their winning streak will come to an end. Bournemouth have Burnley, Brentford, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham. Tricky fixtures. They could win some, but I could see them losing 3. Brentford have Wolves, Bournemouth, Tottenham, Everton, and Sunderland. Honestly, I understand why I brought in Thiago. I see it. Brighton have Sunderland, Arsenal, West Ham, Burnley, Man City. Okay. Outside Arsenal, I can see reason to keep my Brighton players. Welbeck, I might keep you a little longer than I thought. Burnley have Bournemouth, Everton, Newcastle, Brighton, and Man United. Burnley are not in great form. Things are getting real for them. They're looking like they're going to go down with Wolves. So I wouldn't bet on them. Chelsea have Newcastle, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Man City, Fulham. Goodness, these are not easy fixtures at all. These are all difficult fixtures, actually. I wouldn't encourage you to have Chelsea players. Crystal Palace have Leeds, Tottenham, Fulham, Newcastle, and Aston Villa. Honestly, these are all winnable fixtures for them. Maybe Aston Villa, but by that time, their form might be different. Everton have Arsenal, Burnley, Forest, Brentford, and Wolves. After the Arsenal fixture, it might be worth it to get into Everton, especially on the back line. Fulham have Forest, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, and Chelsea. So for me, it seems like their fixture sort of increase in difficulty once they reach Crystal Palace. But I think Forest and West Ham are both winnable fixtures. They're both losable fixtures, but they're also winnable fixtures. Leeds have Crystal Palace, Sunderland, Liverpool, Man United, and Newcastle. Leeds are a team with a lot of fight. They've found a structure that seems to work for them, so I wouldn't go and bet against them quickly. I would bet against them cautiously. I also wouldn't get into them unless this hot streak of Dominic Calvert-Lewin continues. But outside that, proceed with caution. Liverpool have Tottenham, Wolves, Leeds, Fulham, and Arsenal. Oh my goodness, after this, I'm not trusting Tottenham, but after Tottenham, I'm getting Ekitike in. That's what I'm going to do. Yep, I thought I was going to get rid of Van Dijk, but I am not. Man City have West Ham, Forest, Sunderland, Chelsea, Brighton. These games look easy on paper, but I think they'll present quite interesting challenges for Manchester City. Because also remember, Nuno Espirito Santo tends to do well against Manchester City sides, or rather against Pep. Man United have Aston Villa, Newcastle, Wolves, Leeds, and Burnley. Honestly, outside Aston Villa and Newcastle, the rest of the fixtures look winnable for them. And I'm going to keep Bruno. I thought I was going to get him out, but now I'm not. Newcastle have Chelsea, Man United, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Leeds. They have 2 easy fixtures, 2 tricky ones, and 1 difficult one. I would not get into them right now. Maybe after the Man United game. Forest have Fulham, City, Everton, Aston Villa, West Ham. These are tricky fixtures. I could see them getting 6 points from these fixtures, or 5. Spurs have Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Sunderland, and Bournemouth. For Spurs, nothing is easy and nothing is too hard. It's just their form which is inconsistent. They could beat all 5, lose to all 5. I wouldn't be surprised by any of those results. Sunderland have Brighton, Leeds, Man City, Tottenham, and Brentford. My problem with Sunderland is knowing when to use the players of theirs that I have. They're a team worth investing in, but also a team worth investing in if you believe in them. So if you're going to have their players, play their players. That's the only problem I have with them. Myself, I am the problem. West Ham have Man City, Fulham, Brighton, Wolves, and Forest. Honestly, after the West Ham City game, their fixtures, I don't want to say are kind, but they're all winnable, and I can see Espiritu Santo saving his season in these next 5 fixtures, or rather, let me say the next 6, because City is a loss in my eyes. Wolves with their 2 points, definitely. I think all they should be aiming to do is get 11 or 12, because this is ridiculous what they're doing. They have Brentford, Liverpool, Man United, West Ham, and Everton. Honestly, at this point, I'd be surprised if they get a point. That's it, yeah. And with that, we've come to the end of the podcast. The Christmas break is around the corner. Well, there's no Christmas break, but Christmas is around the corner. I hope the year is ending well for you. We'll see you on the pitch. Bye.